Creativity and innovation. This is what pushes the gaming industry forward. Every time someone dares to get creative or to try something new and potentially innovative, it can either be an ambitious idea that doesn't do well and falls flat, or it can be something that literally changes the gaming industry forever. However, Nintendo, yet again, is revealing its very malevolent self. You see, Nintendo has successfully filed patents on a game mechanic, not some obscure, unique one that's been, something that they put into their games for a while, which they would have every right to do. They instead have patented a game mechanic that's existed outside of Nintendo's gaming wheelhouse for a long time. What happens when studios don't or can't create and innovate? And let's be honest, it's the indie studios doing most of that. What happens is that the scope of gaming stagnates like it has been for a while now. However, potentially even more so. What the gaming industry has been giving for a while is the same old stuff they've been pushing out for a long time, because it's not in their interest to take financial risks on something new and potentially innovative or creative. They see that this works and they continue. However, moving forward now, it's not just the financial factor of not wanting to create something new, there's also a potential lawsuit issue if they try and do that. So now you've got the financial issue as well as a lawsuit, because if you try and create something new, there might be that fear that you're crossing some arbitrary line if you do so, and Nintendo is going to be after you. Folks are not going to want to take a risk on a new idea because some company might own the rights to the implementation of said idea. See, it's a real issue because rather than pushing innovation, these patents create fear. Small-time devs have to quite literally second-guess any potential mechanic that they now design. And it's going to make them hyper-aware of these things, because if Nintendo has started successfully patenting a very broad mechanic, what's to stop others from doing the same? You know how they are. You know how predatory these companies can be, because if they can see a loophole that somebody else has exploited, you know they're going to do the same. See, devs are no longer going to be thinking, how can I come up with this new creative, innovative idea for my game? Rather, they'll be thinking, will Nintendo's lawyers be coming after me because I've implemented something that may kind of cross a line? Who knows? That is not how creativity should work. It should not be stifled by this complete looming shadow. That is not how gaming got to where it is today. I'll give you a quick run through of the patents. Other channels have gone into it with a lot more detail, but here's the long and the short of it. A console or other system is being used to run a video game from storage, which is pretty much any video game on any system. The player controls a character in virtual space, again, any video game on any system. The player can perform an input command to make a sub-character appear, i.e. summon another character. There are so many games that already have this implemented in their games in some variety. Is Final Fantasy going to have to be careful because they have summons in their game as a staple? If there's an enemy where the sub-character appears, the player can control a battle between the sub-character and the enemy. If there's no enemy where the sub-character appears, the sub-character will automatically move around. The player can move the sub-character to a different location on the field, and if an enemy is there, they can control the battle between the sub-character and the enemy. This, along with the original patent Nintendo put together regarding the whole Pal World thing, the patent is about a creature that comes out of a throwable object, i.e. a Pokeball. Now, while this may seem like business as usual for a big corporation, this could potentially be devastating to the future of game development and creative freedom, because what this really does is stifle creativity and puts indie devs in this constant state of fear rather than simply creating. When the focus shifts from expression to risk analysis, the entire industry suffers as a result. Indie studios, the ones that normally carry the torch of innovation, now have to water down or completely scrap an idea because they might cross some arbitrary line in the sand that Nintendo has put there. These people are pouring their heart and soul into their creative work in gaming, but now they're being told, watch yourself, don't step too far, don't get too creative now. Somebody somewhere 10 years ago already created something moderately similar. And what happens when folks stop taking creative risks? Stagnation. Let's just be honest with ourselves. Gaming has been stuck in the stagnation loop for a couple years now. Endless sequels, recycled ideas, the same old formulas because studios can't afford to take risks, or they simply won't because, stagnated or not, what they create is financially still working for them. The last thing we need is indie studios, the real innovators, being forced into the same cycle of safe, repetitive design just because one company is trying to claim ownership over gameplay mechanics that belong to the medium as a whole. gaming has always thrived when creativity runs wild, when developers weren't chained by fear but empowered by possibility. And for the last few years, where game development has become a lot more accessible and feasible for so many, we're seeing a lot more of that now. But they too will have to be careful. They're going to be told, do not get too creative, you're overstepping a line. So any dev that wants to explore a new idea now has to ask themselves, does Nintendo potentially own this concept? Am I allowed to create this? That's not art, that's paperwork. And the more this potentially happens, the less free and expressive and innovative the industry becomes. When you're shackled by the potential of a lawsuit, who's going to want to create anymore? Nobody wants that burden. So now we have to ask ourselves this question. Where does this lead? Because if Nintendo can do it, somebody else is going to see that it's possible, and they will likely do the same and try and claim the patent for some arbitrary mechanic that they have just been using for a while. Do we want a gaming industry that innovates and creates new ideas like Clair Obscur, or a gaming industry built upon fear and complete oversight that you can't overstep? Because if this becomes the norm, we're heading for a gaming industry where every new idea is strangled before it has the chance to breathe. The fact that this very broad patent was accepted is ludicrous to me. Again, Nintendo's original patent regarding the Pokeball and summoning a creature from a thrown object, as ridiculous as that was, and that patent only being filed because Palworld was too much of a threat at the time, I can in some way understand that. At least that was specific enough to something they may have helped popularize. But this is too far. Nintendo has been digging a grave for itself with regards to its fans, and this is not helping that fact. When a company has such a huge say with regards to what somebody can simply create, that is worrisome. No medium, gaming or otherwise, should have something as simple and true as creative expression policed by one overseer. What do you think? Are patents like these potentially killing creativity or protecting some? I'd like to hear your thoughts below. Creativity and the act of creating is a simple yet sacred thing, and this creates too many potential boundaries that you cannot simply cross for fear of lawsuits and the like. Alright, squires, thank you for your time, and goodbye.